Hey Patrick, how are ya?
I'm doing well, and how are you?
Good, we got a new premier in New South Wales, Daniel Perrottet.
Yes, things like this do happen.
How do you feel about Gladys resigning?
It's kind of a complicated one, but she had got herself into what was an unviable position.
Yeah.
She was stuck between a rock and a hard place.
What do you think of the new Daniel Perrottet's Catholic views? People are picking on him because he's Catholic.
I've not seen anything of them yet.
Yeah, he's got like 6 kids.
Well, good on him.
He used to be the member for Epping.
Or even better, good on his wife.
Yeah. He used to be the member for Epping.
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting. New South Wales got a new government, Patrick, too. And, yeah.
It is certainly a new leader.
Mm.
And that means a few positions have changed.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. As I said, we'll just have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we can judge Perrottet yet on his background, his so-called background.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, Gladys has gone to the ICAC as well.
Yeah.
And
she was in there today and they were being a bit tough with her.
Serious? Shit.
Oh, yes.
Apparently she was using an encrypted messaging app.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So how do they uncover these recordings from, like, when was this? She was doing 2018?
Well, the thing is that the moment somebody is formally under investigation by the ICAC,
Yeah.
they do have tapping powers.
Yeah.
So he was being tapped, not she.
Wow.
So when she rang him, they suddenly got all of these conversations, and all of a sudden, because he was up to his eyeballs already,
Yeah.
it had already been done. He was done previously for taking kickbacks.
Yeah.
So he was gone. He was already gone.
Bill Costello, is it?
So,
Is it Bill Costello?
I really don't know the rest. I haven't bothered with the details of the story.
No,
I
but
have to know that he was running a fiddle with people giving him asking for kickbacks.
there's something to do with Wagga Wagga. They were going to build something in Wagga Wagga.
Well, that was what he was done for. That was actually happening in the Sydney area.
Yeah.
With all sorts of funny, I've got influence with councils, etc. But in Wagga, a couple of things were built
Yeah.
that might not have been needed, that being his electorate.
Yeah.
And somebody coming up to see me? No, go next door. Well, I'm hard expecting somebody, that's all.
Yeah.
So, getting back to the Wagga Wagga, there are a couple of things going on in Wagga Wagga, and because he is the local member, and is a very, very pushy local member, he really was apparently one of these pain-in-the-ass ones who, until he got what he wanted, but that wasn't always, the best thing. A couple of things happened in Wagga that maybe shouldn't have. Certainly, there were 2 of them. There was a very significant money spent on their local conservatorium of music, which quite possibly is a major cultural venue there. They kind of moved it from the university out to their own premises, and then they were going to, the big money was for building a big world-class concert hall in Wagga. Which, well, Wagga is a big town and it's a big centre, so maybe there's a case for it. And the other one was an international class clay pigeon shooting range.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And this is the one that people are kind of scratching their heads about, partly because there's already a major one operating in New South Wales. And you don't really need all that many of them in the country.
Yeah. No, it's all these laws that, there must be some corruption up in our federal government, Peter, Patrick. And, yeah, either...
Federal? This is all state.
Is it state, not federal?
Yeah, these are all state things that are going on, yes.
Yeah. And I don't know why.
So that was the story of Maguire and Wagga.
Yeah.
The thing was that because Ms. Berejiklian was having an affair with Mr. Maguire at the same time, was she being influenced by him in helping him, and was she? I'm doing a bit of math. Was she unduly helping him? That was the question. Was she helping him? She shouldn't have been.
Yeah, because why is it in state politics or federal politics? You got to declare your relationship or a bottle of wine, like Barry O'Farrell didn't declare a bottle of wine.
Is that there is a very real possibility. I'm not multitasking. There's a very real possibility of corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, Fatty O'Barrell's bottle of wine was a rather expensive bottle of wine, actually.
I thought it was just wine.
$3,000 range.
Oh my god.
Now, the point is, if politicians receive gifts,
Yeah.
you have to ask, why are they being given the gift? What is the purpose of the person giving the gift? And if the purpose is to persuade them to do something they wouldn't have otherwise done, then that is the essence of corruption.
Bribery, isn't it?
Bribery, yes. That is bribery, yes. So politicians, therefore, are required to declare gifts. Now, with relationships, you can end up with these conflicts of interests.
Yeah.
I mean, am I supporting the Wagga? Am I supporting Mr. Maguire in his request for Wagga because I think it's a good idea, or am I requesting it because I am his partner? And if the people making the decision don't know that, they don't know whether or not where she's coming from. So it's the people making the decisions know where the people who are making the requests are coming from.
Yeah.
For clarity.
What's the ICAC, Patrick?
Independent Commission Against Corruption.
Because Kevin Rudd went there too, about some buildings a couple of years ago with builders.
Lots of people have been pulled up before, and lots of people have been done, and lots of people have walked away completely clean. That's basically a body set up beside beside the ombudsman and the police force. And its job is just that. It is independent. It's a very, very legalistic body. I mean, it's run by lawyers with investigators. But the top men are all lawyers, and the top person, and they're all top-class lawyers. And if they get a sniff of something going wrong, essentially in the state political world or this major business world, they have the authority to go in and say, hey, not that you are committing a crime, but you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, what happened is in this case, there'll be no evidence at all that what Ms. Berejiklian did was a crime, that we can see. But certainly it is on the nose.
Now,
at the end, the ruling will be that what you're doing, that's almost certainly my belief, is that what she was doing certainly doesn't quite feel right.
yeah, so...
And the problem is with politics is if it doesn't completely feel right, then it's wrong. Because we've got to be able to trust our politicians. We don't, but we should be able to.
How many years ago was this, Patrick? 2018, was it?
Yeah, well, it finished in 2018.
So why...
It's been going on for about 5 years, apparently.
Why does the ICAC take so long to investigate?
Well, this particular one didn't come up instantly. What happened was they were investigating Donald Maguire, for an unrelated matter. And because they're investigating, and because they're a judicial body, something like the police, they have the authority to get a warrant and phone tap. During these phone taps, something came up. That's interesting. A name came up of somebody who I think is dead, so it must be somebody with the same name. Sorry, if we came back to this, so during that investigation, it became apparent that Ms. Berejiklian was actually having an affair with Mr. Maguire, and that they were talking about other things beyond what they were originally investigating.
Mm.
And these whole Wagga transactions came up in that discussion.
Mm.
But there was also another couple of kind of discussions he had where she said things like, don't tell me about that.
Mm.
So last year, they actually interviewed her privately.
You.
Now, what happens is they interview privately, and it's slow because it's like any kind of court trial. It's like a trial. They build up the case slowly and slowly. It's not a huge organisation. They can take their time, just make up, find out what's going on. They talk to a lot of people, and then if they think that the whole story is sufficiently worrisome, they then go to public hearings and they say, we are actually investigating and talking to this person.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually the final stage. This has been going on, they've been investigating for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I did actually speak to her privately last year.
If Gladys is guilty, what happens?
They don't find her guilty. This is the point.
Mm.
They are not a court.
Mm-hmm.
They can't find her guilty. And in fact, any evidence that is given in this hearing isn't admissible in court because with the ICAC, the ICAC, they're allowed to compel you to answer.
Mm.
You can't say, I won't answer, the infamous, what the Americans call the fifth, that we call the right of self-incrimination. You cannot say, I don't want to answer that question because I want to incriminate myself. They can say, you must answer that question.
Mm.
Because what it is, they don't find her guilty of it. They find that her actions were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets us, so basically they find that her actions were inappropriate, wrong, or even corrupt. But it's not a crime, so there's no formal penalty.
Will it damage her?
But at the same time, as a politician, she's gone.
So does it damage your reputation?
And how? I mean, again, depends on what you're done for.
Mm.
Some people get away with it, some don't. I mean, I can't think of any cases. There've been quite a few, but you tend to remember the big ones. But like the OBs, who have now been convicted of crimes, first came to light through ICAC hearings.
When was this?
ICAC started looking at something they were doing very flaky in the sort of the key area.
Yeah, who's the OBs? Because I've never heard of the OBs.
You haven't heard of the OBs, but you mustn't read the newspapers very well. And you're doing this kind of thing. The OB was another parliamentarian.
Yeah.
He also was a businessman.
Mm.
And he was first convicted and went to jail for having fun manipulating leases for cafes down at Circular Quay.
Oh dear.
Yeah, if you know that Circular Quay at all, but there's a cafe called the Ark.
I think I've heard of
the northern
it.
end.
Yeah.
Got a little island kind of one. It's no longer there because it was running, and there was a bit of crookedness involved.
Mm.
So, and after that, he and a minister and his son, next minister, and his son were convicted and had been imprisoned on matters relating to coal mining leases. But again, ICAC was the first people to look at these. Mm-hmm. In this case, there was more than reputational damage done. There was also material damage done to them because the police then had a starting point and were able to recreate the same evidence themselves for what was in fact criminal corruption. Mm-hmm. Now, the main thing that ICAC can do is it basically damages reputations. Mm. And depending on how badly your reputation is damaged and the nature of the damage, the consequences follow. But the real job of ICAC, interestingly, people keep forgetting this, is to stop it happening. Mm. So if somebody thinks they might be doing something, or getting pushed with they might be doing something, they can go and ask ICAC, what's your advice on this? And they'll give it to them. Mm. Because they're commissioned against corruption. Mm-hmm. So a lot of their job is preventative. They spend time teaching people, hey, this is how you avoid it. This is how you avoid even looking like it. Mm-hmm. In Gladys's case, it is as much the appearance as the reality. Here you are, having an intense affair with a man who has been behaving corruptly. Mm.
Not
and
good.
you haven't told anybody.
Not good, Patrick, not good.
That looks wrong.
Yeah, that's not good for a premier to do that.
It looks wrong, yeah. I mean, it's, she was, I heard the end of her evidence this morning. She was saying, I didn't think it was, she was sticking to her guns that she didn't believe that it was serious enough and it was influencing her work.
Yes, she did say that, I can win a seat with my votes, I can have the power of my votes or something like that for this project.
What was it that she said? Basically, she can, she was saying that she can get the money into there to win the seat.
Oh.
That's what this was. There was also a medical hospital, it really was. But some of these conversations are taking place after Maguire had been already left part of politics. Knew he had already resigned because he knew he was going.
Now, how is this ICAC being played on TV live or not, or they can't?
You can get it. It is live streamed.
Oh, okay.
They went into closed session about 11 o'clock this morning because there was something that they wanted to show that involved third parties who they wanted to protect.
How long is this ICAC thing going to go for still? With Gladys?
Today's Monday. This was Gladys' second day and probably last day of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the last witness. So this investigation, this public hearing, will end today. In the next couple of days, the barrister assisting, the lawyer who is actually effectively conducting the examinations, will say, hey, to the commissioner, this is, well, I believe the case, this is therefore what you should find, and the commissioner will then make a ruling.
Mm.
And that takes a little time because the commissioner wants to go away and think and talk to other relevant, maybe consult authorities and things like this. So sometime in the next few weeks, we'll probably hear something. But my feeling is, this is just is that what we are not going to hear today will be the damning evidence that will actually go and bring it out.
Mm. Yeah, well, we'll wait and see what Daniel Perrottet's got to do for New South Wales. But I've heard St Vincent de Paul's has reopened again.
Yeah, we're all back at work.
But do you have to QR code in all the time?
Oh, we're QR coding in, yeah.
Ugh, that's a pain.
Oh, not just click, 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 press, bing. Three presses of the phone, and when you young people use a phone all the time, it's less work than texting.
And then you got to sign the paper too, do you?
No. Once if QR code is the paper.
Oh.
We sign on anyway because that's a different record. But the QR code's no work.
Now, do we have to get a booster shot next year?
We don't have to. They have been made legal.
Yeah.
They've been authorised that after 6 months you can get a booster shot.
Mm-hmm.
It will be the Novavax Pfizer.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be 6 months after your second, and it depends on what availability of things.
Mm.
Possibly advised. I'm just waiting to hear what the advice really is.
Mm. It feels good to be fully vaccinated, Patrick.
Yeah. A little bit of, this sucks, I gotcha.
So how long does a booster going to last?
Well, this is it. We could call it a booster, or we could simply call it a third shot.
Mm.
We just simply call it a complete. The thing is, these are brand new vaccines.
Yeah.
I think we had this discussion last time.
This is fascinating.
But then we've had this discussion last time, almost exactly. These are brand new vaccines.
Yeah.
Against a brand new disease, brand new germ, a brand new virus.
Yeah.
It is not known, and it won't be known completely, how long the human body's immune system will continue to react well, appropriately against the virus over time as the presence of the virus becomes less or as the virus mutates.
Yeah.
So it's an unknown. So they're recommending a third dose of something mix and match to really kick the system along. Because as I said, remember we talked about this now, how they're basically conning the human immune system into recognising instantly that this is a nasty, we've got to get rid of it.
Yep.
Now, rather than
We
saying,
have to.
what's this hanging around and spending time 2 or 3 days working out that it's nasty.
No, it's just what I've been hearing on the news as well.
Yeah.
But no, it's we got to get rid of this virus, Patrick.
I doubt whether we'll ever get rid of it. If it's going to be hanging around for a long time, it is probably going to sit, interestingly, in terms of the world impact. 30 years ago, when you wanted to travel, you had to have a smallpox vaccination. Mm-hmm. Because smallpox was there.
Yeah.
And people who travel got smallpox vaccinations.
Yeah.
Automatically. Unless you were kind of one of these people who never got it. And then, so, I've got a feeling is that in the foreseeable future, there will be serious concerns expressed about the COVID-19 because it is such a nasty, nasty disease. It really is a nasty one. So we want to make sure that it doesn't spread, it doesn't get another toehold, doesn't get started again.
What happens if there's another variant of it?
Well, the beauty of these things is that if there is another variant, they now know enough about what works with this one that it's relatively easy to go take the step to get something against the variant. Mm-hmm. Just a tweak, and so the booster will then be a Pfizer type one. Because now they know that this works, now they know that this vaccine type works.
Yeah.
Any vaccine against the variant, we like the variants against the influenza vaccine.
Yeah.
Just a tweak, just a thing. Oh, this has now got an extra spike on it. Oh, so we have to change that coding in the RNA. So if we use that extra spike in the and bingo.
How long do you think we'll have to keep QR coding for?
How long is a piece of string? I would like to see it happening for some time, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I really would. To me, it's a constant reminder that we are still in a difficult time. You see, when they kind of relaxed more on December the 1st, which is just a month away, we'll see what happens then. And so far, we've not had that outburst. Numbers are still going down, and the vaccination rate is still going up.
So here's a question, Patrick. People are still getting vaccinated, yet people still get COVID.
Well, just, I mean, the point is that, as I said, it cons the body into fighting against the bug.
Yeah.
But not every body fights against it as well as other bodies. Mm-hmm. People have different quality immune systems.
Exactly.
However, so far, for fully vaccinated people who have been maturely vaccinated, or people who were vaccinated at least for a week, I think there might have been one person who died and maybe 3 or 4 who needed intensive care. Yeah. As against there's still the hundreds who without vaccination.
Are these elderly?
That is what it really does. It provides massive, massive protection.
Yeah.
Against serious, debilitating, killing quality disease, and almost certain protection against death.
Were these elderly people?
Probably yes. People who were otherwise kind of compromised anyway. But if you think about it, it kind of seatbelts don't save everybody. But they save a hell of a lot of people. I mean, if you get in a pram without a seatbelt, you see, you're too bloody young to remember this.
You never had seatbelts growing up.
Seatbelts weren't even twinkling in anybody's eye. But I remember the first time I wore seatbelts, and I'm pleased for the very first time I wore seatbelts, it probably saved me. involved in a head-on.
What about airbags?
Airbags, similarly. They're not going to save everybody.
Is it true airbags can do more damage to you?
Oh, that's the same kind of reasoning that says that the vaccine can do more harm to you. Spurious statistics. Certainly those ones they were recalling could have, yes, because if it goes off unexpectedly, you don't want it to go off, you're driving at speed of 170 an hour, then you're dead. And airbags are nasty. An airbag explosion is just that, it is an explosion. But, provided that the container is properly made, so you don't get little pieces of plastic flying around, then basically it's equivalent to being bopped in the face, by a large, soft pillow very hard. So basically, it's basically being whammed across the whole body hard.
What about...
And you might end up bruised. But it certainly stops you travelling at 80, 90, 100 kilometres an hour into your windscreen or even up against your seatbelt.
Now, the thing about whiplash, Patrick, as well, is quite bad too.
Yeah, well, whiplash is hard to protect against, although, surprisingly, there's been less... was one very simple thing that started putting permanent headrests in cars. If you have a permanent headrest, your head to go back that far and stop instead of going back that far.
Yeah. But then you could go back and then you're going to go boom like that.
But when you're going forward, the whole body's going forward.
Yeah.
And again, this is where the airbag comes in. Because while the belt stops here and your head keeps moving forward, the airbag hits you whole body and face. So whiplash is a real thing.
Oh yeah, it's dangerous, Patrick.
Yeah, well, all that, but again, you just got to... They're all dangerous, and but when you think about it, before they started these major developments in road safety, there were more people killed on the roads with fewer cars and fewer people than there are now. We've still actually yet to catch up. The number of people, fatal accidents, has yet to catch up. And we're talking about 30 years with the increasing distance travelled, the number of people on the road. So definitely they have worked. But it used to be regularly 1,500 people a year killed on the roads every year in New South Wales.
Yeah, it's dangerous, the road, Patrick.
Okay, but it used to be a lot more dangerous.
You know the amount of people I see overtaking on a double unbroken line and then over speeding
they're called temporary motorists.
Yeah, on Narellan Road, and then they just cut you off straight in front.
I know there's a lot of silly drivers.
Why are people doing that?
You put yourself in a car.
Yeah.
And you think about it. There's the psychology of it. I have this big... I am in a case. I am protected. I'm cut off from the world. I've got the radio going so I can't hear the world. No, seriously, you are in your own little box.
Yeah.
I'm in control of all this power, and I'm in a hurry, and I'm important. Because everyone is important to themselves.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
And I'm in a hurry. So this person is driving a little bit faster than me. I will pass. I must admit, I was a bit naughty today. I was on the Narellan Road, and I suddenly realised I was driving just under 50. Just over 50 because I'd slowed down to let the traffic in and sped up again.
Yeah.
That behind was going beep, 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 and then it went boom, 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 boom. He switched lanes, and when we got to the next set of lights, here was one car in front of me. Got one car in front of me.
Oh boy.
So, but there's a whole massive study of the psychology of car driving, and it's mainly about the fact that I'm myself in my own little powerful domain. That I am now boss.
And that's what people think, Patrick, that they're the boss.
Yeah, well, you've got a car, it is. I mean, you are. You're in your own domain. That's if you're on your own. The one that is the real killer, sadly, is you have 2 or 3 young fellas in the road, and they start kind of leering each other on, which young fellas do. And that's not at all funny.
No, it's not.
That is one of the real killers. That is one of the reasons why they brought in all those rules for P-players about the number of passengers and the times of driving, etc. Because it really was. It was 2 or 3 young fellas in the car, drunk or sober. They'll act drunk. They do. Just the nature of young fellas together. They start yahooing.
Yeah.
That's what fellas do. It's natural.
So, you get other you look at other countries too, they're not as strict on speeding, I've noticed.
Yeah, well, Australia is possibly a little paranoid. It's a little bit over the top on speeding.
Like in America, you can go 30, 40 k's over and the cops don't care.
Well, I don't know about that because I've never actually driven a car in America.
They're not as strict over there.
As I said, I wouldn't know. I do know that there are parts of America where probably they are as strict. Don't forget, America is a big country with 50 different states.
At some states, you can ride a motorbike with no helmet.
Well, that's our right. See, the point is, don't forget, America has a long history of regarding the rights of the individual first. They come from what is my right. How dare you infringe it? What is your authority to remove any of my rights? That's why, for instance, they only breath test people if they have actual reason. I mean, they just can't. In New South Wales, we have random breath testing, and it has made a huge difference. But this is probably the thing that will save more lives than anything else. We just don't get drunk people driving in New South Wales anymore. Well, we do, but nothing like as many. You know, they randomly check, and they check about 1 in 1,000 people that they test randomly has been drinking. And that is drinking enough to fail the test. But the test in New South Wales is strict. And it is set right at the borderline of being drunk. Most people who are at 0.05, so many people at 0.05 could drive completely safely. But precautionary, let's keep it safe. By setting the standards stiff and hard, we are making sure that people don't do it, and they don't.
And that's good, and they shouldn't, Patrick. You know, but that's every country's different with their laws too.
Yep. Well, you've got to think of history, of culture. As I said, even as I said, things like what are the basic thought processes. I said in Australia, surprisingly, we talk about ourselves in Australia. Really, we tend to be law followers in Australia. You tend to complain about them, but follow them.
Now, in Germany, you got the Autobahn. You can do 300 k's on that, and if
they're actually thinking about changing that.
You serious?
Apparently.
Because if you don't, the cops can fine you if you're not driving fast.
Believe it or not, you can be fined in Australia for going too slowly on the road.
Yeah.
You know that?
No, I didn't.
If you are on a divided road with more than one lane in each direction, you are not permitted in that right-hand lane unless you are overtaking. Full stop. In other words, if you are driving at less than the speed limits in that right-hand lane, you can be booked. And it makes sense. By driving at less than the speed limit in that road lane, you are impeding the whole traffic flow.
Yeah.
It's not about safety and just impeding the traffic flow. If you want to drive slowly, you go to the left and let the people who wish to drive at the speed limit to drive at the speed limit and pass you.
Etiquette on the road.
Overtake.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but the Autobahn, Patrick, 300 k's.
Yeah, as I said, no experience of them, and I'm not sure whether I want to drive at 300 kilometres an hour against anyway. I mean, I see no value in it.
You'd get a Ferrari. You can see the top.
And this is the thing: you need to have the right vehicle for it. B, you have to have some reason that is so important that your time is so valuable that you've got to get from here to here in 10 minutes less than the bloke who's driving it. 20 minutes less than the bloke who's driving beside you, because you've got to allow for all the fiddle-faddling at the beginning and the end anyway. So you're not going to... What is it? You're saving time? Or is it the fact that I can do it? In that case, that's just big boys playing.
See, the problem with these sport cars on the Australian roads, they're not suited, Patrick.
Many of these cars are really quite fun.
You know, you have to have, like... Because, you know, you got a lot of potholes on the road, and you could pop
a lot of Australian roads aren't the best. I mean, the good Australian roads are very good. But we've got a lot of roads that aren't very good because we've got a lot of roads where there aren't many people on them. Well, that's think about it. I mean, Australian roads are very long roads with not many people. And don't forget to consider that Australia is roughly the same size as the 48 contiguous states of America. They've got 10 times the population. 20 times the population.
Yeah.
Their roads can be better. They've got 20 more people per mile of road. Think about it.
But
getting back to your comment about sports cars being suitable.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I was coming out of a game, football game at Leichhardt Oval along Mary Street. Now, after the game, that street is full of people walking up to where the buses are, to the tram shop and things. It is essentially a pedestrian road. And you can't drive at any speed there. And there's this bloke in a bright yellow, almost the parma-coloured yellow Lamborghini, you know, that Lamborghini yellow, trying to drive along that road. There were lots of people laughing. It really was, I thought, why would you take a Lamborghini to a football game where you know you are going to have this kind of traffic? If you really wanted to drive, you wait for half an hour and then you drive out as smoothly as is possible. It was really quiet. But the stalling it twice, that was the real fun of it.
So, yeah, and you know, they use up so much petrol, Patrick.
Oh, yes. He probably used a litre of petrol to do this.
A litre?
Well, no. He was... Be alright, man. Totally.
A litre of petrol.
Well, it sounded like he was... Because of the engine, it has to be constantly revved up. Because they don't idle.
They don't idle, those cars.
Huh?
They don't idle. That's interesting.
They're very poor idling.
Yeah.
Because they're tuned to be revving. It's the whole thing, the timing of things.
Yeah.
The spark plugs. See, one of the things is a lot of them have spark plugs that are designed to only operate at those high speed temperatures.
Yeah, because I probably said this before. Yeah, our mechanics fix Ferraris, but he said they're just so fiddly.
Exactly.
They're a pain in the arse to service too, Patrick.
Well, there are a couple of things about them. And every internal combustion engine car is very complicated.
Yeah.
Every internal combustion are complicated. These high-tech Ferrari engines, etc., are slightly more complicated. Partly. Or some are just as simple, really. But also, they tend to design them to look good, rather than necessarily be good. And because of size, they're packing a lot into a small place. They often tend to be packed in more. So, as they're fiddly. You know, this piece, instead of having this pipe going around that way, it goes through there, and around this pipe, and over that pipe to get to there. It goes through rather than around, and things like this. So it ends up fiddly and all packed in, getting each other's way.
Well, see, with Ferraris, they put the engine in the boot.
No, they don't. They put it mid-engine.
Mid-engine?
In front of the rear axle.
Why is that?
Balance. It's got to do with how the car balances. You see, the thing is because of it's close to the middle of the wheelbase.
Mm-hmm.
So you get it evenly balanced front and back. The old Porsches did have the engine at the back.
Yeah.
As did the original V-dubs. And that meant the old Porsches were quite dangerous to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Because you go too fast into a corner, and that heavy back would just keep on going.
Mm.
You go, and the back just keep on going.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, these sports cars are a price of $1 million, Patrick.
Yep.
Like the McLaren, the McLaren F1.
Oh, well, they're supercars. They're different again.
Every 45 minutes, you got to fuel it up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know how people can drive them.
Whereas with my car, every month or so I fuel it up.
You got diesel?
No, I've got the hybrid.
Oh, that's right. Is that how do they get their fuel economy? The hybrid.
Brilliant. Since I've bought it, I've averaged just under 5 litres per 100.
So what do you use to fuel it? Unleaded or E10?
Yeah, E10.
Yeah. Steve Price was saying E10's not the best stuff to put in your car fuel.
Who said?
Steve Price.
What does Steve Price know about cars?
He was on a radio station.
What does Steve Price know about cars?
I don't know.
No, sure. That is... No, I mean, there are... Okay, some...
Is it true, Patrick? Because it's advised to use unleaded, but not unleaded E10 for your car.
Well, let's just say, the people who make the car,
Yeah.
they put E10 in it.
Yeah.
They say that the car will work perfectly well with E10.
Yeah.
Why would I not believe them and believe Steve Price?
Exactly.
No, seriously, I mean, if you have some of the older cars, there were some issues with valves and things. Mm-hmm. Because of different temperatures and the fact that the ethanol, even at 10%, can rust some surfaces and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if your car is an older car, or, okay, if you've got a particular kind of performance car, then you wouldn't put E10 in anyway. Don't have right octane rating.
Like no, but
and there's a little bit of wankery involved. My car only takes proper petrol.
like the Coles petrol station in Narellan, they don't have any unleaded. They only got the E10.
You'll find all petrol's unleaded.
Yeah, but they're not working, so you can only use
they're not working. That's another.
And we usually put unleaded, so I've had to put E10 because our car can take E10 as well, but we prefer unleaded.
Well, like I said, you're paying a difference.
Yeah.
You don't get quite the same mileage, so the difference isn't as big as it looks. But seriously, I mean, if the engine is designed to run on E10, it will run on E10.
Exactly. Let's talk about diesel engines, because diesel is one of the most fuel economical you can have.
Historically, yes. In fact, my second car was diesel.
Yeah.
And I used to get what, for those days, was ridiculous mileage. Nowadays, I look back at it, any modern petrol car would meet it for quality, because they just improved the engine design so much. The thing about diesels is this is, because it operates at a higher temperature and a higher pressure, it is more efficient. Mm-hmm. Because the efficiency of the engine, that's why they use high-octane fuel. Mm-hmm. Because what octane does is it increases the pressure and the temperature you can work at. And basic physics says high temperature, high pressure, better efficiency. You get a bigger difference. So diesels work at higher temperatures and higher pressures, and that is why you get more energy from the fuel, more effectively from the fuel than you do from a petrol engine.
Well, diesels cost you more money too to buy.
Yeah, well, diesel engines cost a bit more. They're more robust generally.
Hmm.
I bought mine, I had no trouble. I just ran it a couple of years ago. I sold it because I left the country. Another story.
What you do, Patrick?
And the thing was that the diesels had these totally different driving characteristics.
Hmm.
I mean, a diesel engine goes tonk, 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 tonk at an idle. It has a much flatter torque curve, which means it actually accelerates slightly better. But it kind of ran out of grunt. It wasn't quite as powerful, but it would just... This Mercedes, I suppose, was a good engine. And it would just quietly roll up to speed and just sit there. And it just roll along the road at 90 mile an hour, which is somewhat faster than when it's supposed to go. It's about 140k. And it just kind of roll along at that, and you wouldn't even notice it. So the diesel was... but at that stage, diesel was cheaper to buy than petrol too.
Yeah, diesel's expensive, Patrick.
What happened is at that stage, because diesel was primarily an industrial fuel, it had less tax on it, so they were able to sell it for less. Nowadays, they tax it and give the tax back to the people who actually don't drive diesel, who need to use it. So farmers and long-haul drivers get a rebate. But the ordinary people who drive diesel... It's interesting, diesel engines... the Le Mans 24-hour race is now won by diesel cars. If you want to win Le Mans using an internal combustion engine, they haven't yet had electrical hybrids in there. If you want to win it using an internal combustion engine, you drive a diesel. Which, when you think about it, because this car is performing at almost a very, very steady very steady speed, continuously. That's what diesels are great at.
Yeah.
They're great at just running. That's why locomotives were diesel electric. They were the first hybrids without the battery. Because what happened was the locomotive had a diesel engine that drove a generator that drove the wheels, motors on the wheels. And this meant that the diesel engine could essentially run at the same speed. By running at the same speed, it was able to maintain its peak efficiency.
That's the beauty about diesels. You remember the Toyota four-wheel drives, the old ones?
Yeah, well, I know of them. I never actually drove one on that.
They're made to last.
Oh, the old hype nuts for me.
Yeah, they have them in the Outback too, Patrick.
Huh?
The Toyotas, they work well in the Outback.
Yeah, well, so the thing about the diesel is it's a simpler engine. It has injectors rather than carburetor, so you can clean an easier fuel flow arrangement. Timing is easy because instead of having to fire up all this sparky kind of stuff, you just go squirt with the fuel, or there's a pump to squirt the fuel in, and it goes into the cylinder and away it goes. So in many ways, but generally because of they generally build them heavier too. Because of that capacity to keep going, because they tend to build them more solidly.
That's the beauty about diesel cars.
Yeah, but the only problem with diesels is, interestingly, when I had the car, this is back in 1971, they were testing exhaust, and the diesel came up cleaner because I was testing for the carbon monoxide. And diesels burn more efficient, so they get less carbon monoxide out. Of course, they also pump that dirty, straight carbon. They're actually physically dirty, but by one criterion, they were actually cleaner.
Is it true that you can fuel your diesel with sunflower oil or something? Or is that a myth?
You have to modify it slightly.
Ah.
Don't forget that they flew a plane was it, from Sydney to Perth or somewhere recently, using peanut oil.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can buy it. No, you can recycle cooking oil.
Yeah.
It's probably peanut oil anyway, but yeah. No, you can actually recycle cooking oil into fuel oil.
Wow.
You see, when you think about what the fuel is, it has to be some kind of stuff that will burn at the right temperature, or rather ignite explosively at the right temperature and under the right conditions. So it has to vaporise or form micro droplets, mix with the air and then explode. Now, most oils, that is true oils, not silicated things, most carbon-based oils will do that. But you've got to get the settings right.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. A lot of science and engineering goes into building cars.
In fact, it has been known for diesel-type engines to be driven on coal.
Wow.
You pulverise the coal, you make a slurry with water, you have enough coal-to-water ratio, and that will actually work.
See, the old diesel trains were run on coal.
No, they were on fuel, they were on oil.
Oil?
Yeah.
Before the electric trains?
The diesel electrics, the diesels are run on oil.
Yeah.
The steamers run on steam.
Sorry, Pat, steam.
The steamers are run on coal, yeah.
No.
The steamers, yeah. The 3801 and all the puffers, all the old choo-choo trains, they run on coal, yes.
So someone actually had to keep digging coal to keep that thing going.
Well, until the middle of the 20th century when somebody said, oh, we could build a machine to do that. No, the newer ones had machines to do it. But it used to be they had to shovel the coal. That was the fireman's job.
Wow, coal.
You'd open the door and throw in a shovel full of coal. And then open the door and throw another shovel full of coal.
Yeah, must have been a very not pleasant job.
Demanding, hard job, yes.
It's like the old organ in the church. Someone had to pull it or something to keep it working.
Well, again, some of the old organs were manually pumped here.
Oh, God.
Well, up until the invention of mechanical power, how else are you going to do it? Have a horse outside going around and around in circles driving a pulley? Have a water mill outside? A windmill?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could put a windmill on top of a church steeple to run the organ, but you're relying on the wind blowing while you're having mass.
Exactly.
So, until we got efficient mechanical sources of power, that had to be pumped mechanics. It had to be animal power, and the most suitable animal was the person. Just going. Now, they don't use a lot of wind power, surprisingly. I mean, an organ didn't use a lot of wind. A good organ, a good efficient organ uses quite a little. But still used quite a bit, still used significant enough. So you needed the big organs probably had a couple of people running big bellows. It had 2 bellows and some kind of reservoir.
Yeah, amazing. Engineering with organs, Patrick.
Organs are magnificent machines. Have you ever been inside one?
No, I'd like to.
Right. If you get a chance, every so often, the Sydney Town Hall opens up and they let you into the organ.
Wow, I've got to do that.
And you suddenly see how the organ works. Because what happens is when they push down the key, it pulls on effectively a piece of cord that connects up to all that slides a valve open. Then actually, when you push that, it might slide open 10 valves on 10 different pipes because you might have 10 different ranges for that thing. But air is only supplied to one of those set of pipes, so only one pipe sounds. It's really quite simple when you think about it. But the actual making it work, the miles of the miles of cordage and the complexity of the interlocks and things, they really are impressive machines.
Well, I wonder, because to play the organ is a very hard instrument to learn as well.
It's quite physically, the mechanical organ is quite fit because you are, as I said, you are pushing down quite hard to run quite a few things.
Now,
and also it's complex because you are dealing with probably 2 different keyboards, or even 3 or 4, depending on what ranges you have. You've got to select what sounds you want to make. And because they give you pedals as well, you also play the bottom notes with your feet.
Exactly.
So you need, a lot of musical skill, but also it's physically demanding because you are... But most musical instruments are physically demanding.
The reason why, because we studied about the organ in my undergrad degree, and Bach played the organ, wrote quite a lot of stuff for the organ too.
Everybody knows that Carter refuted G, but that's another story.
But to tune that thing, they got to pull it all apart.
Well, to tune it, each pipe has to be tuned separately. Because after all, each pipe is a separate note. And the pipe has to be taken out to be tuned. Well, it's possible. With some pipes, it's possible to tune them in situ. And most pipes have a little sleeve on the top that slides up and down to tune them. You're not careful, you'll see all of these things. Otherwise, some of them have a slot in them that opens and shuts.
Apparently, they got to close the whole church just to tune that thing.
Well, of course they would, because it would be a horrid sound. It would be. It'd be... 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Or 100, depending on the number of pipes in the organ. Now, a big organ has, 300 or 400 pipes in it. And each one has to be sounded simply. The old 64-foot, the old 64-foot bass at the bottom. Some of those you can almost not hear it.
Yeah.
Some of those organ pipes you can almost not hear.
Amazing machine. Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, but it goes to show that some of these instruments. I think there's isn't there a massive organ in a church somewhere in Sydney or in Europe?
There are several major organs around.
Sydney Opera House has got one.
The Opera House has the biggest in Australia.
Yeah.
And it's the newest major organ. It is a big daddy. It's up back in a concert hall. And the thing is with an organ, you don't see how big it is. Because all you see are the display pipes.
Yeah.
They're tucked in behind that. They're the rest of the pipes. You don't see all the organ. You don't see all the pipes necessarily. There can be more behind.
Now, I was going to mention about the Sydney Opera House. Apparently, that it doesn't have the best acoustics.
There was all sorts of problems with it.
You serious?
Because when they built it, they started with the shell.
Yeah.
And then they started putting the inside in. And then they asked the question, what do we want to do with this inside? Because there were questions about what they were designing the space for. And so when they decided to change the major hall into a concert hall, they didn't reconfigure all the physical layout so that it actually had to then be tweaked to make it work because it's got this huge overhead space above the performing platform. And orchestras don't like that. They don't like their sound to go up into the sky and then kind of bounce down 3 seconds later. They wanted to go up that way. So they had to put in the donuts, which were lowable. And it's been closed for last year, and will be closed until the middle of this year, and they're rebuilding it.
Oh, okay.
Right now, the Opera House the concert hall is being completely rebuilt. We probably won't see much difference, but because when they built it again, acoustics was only just really becoming a really well-developed science. So, there the real question is like, how much dwell time should it have? If you go bang, should it echo for a half a second, 3/4 of a second, or a full second? Because if you're singing opera, and someone doing that, so then you want it as short as possible, because you want the audience to hear every word sung. If you're playing an orchestra, you want it to hang around for longer. You want that longer reverb. You know that reverb being a musician.
Yeah, reverb.
You want all that with an orchestra. You want a bit of reverb.
Of course.
It gives an extra strength, an extra body.
Especially in classical music.
Exactly. Yeah, you want that. You want that. So that you had this tension between how much reverb will we have. Things like this.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But in fact, I always thought it had pretty good acoustics. It had very, very sharp acoustics. Very, very clear, very sharp acoustics. Rather spoiled by the fact that it had a very poor PA system. That's very good sound amplification for music, but very poor for voice.
See, with the Opera House and some venues, they don't like you filming in there for some reason.
Copyright.
But then you can go to other venues, they don't care.
It's copyright. It's all to do with copyright.
Oh.
Simple as that. We are performing. We are performing to be paid to perform. So it's something like, say, the Australian Chamber Orchestra, they film it.
Yeah.
Then they can sell the film. Whereas if I come in and film it, sneakily, I can sell that concert to somebody else for a lot less than it costs them to make.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you go to a rock concert and try, and you whip out your camera, you'll find yourself in strife. Most rock concerts, you're seeing the camera in your hand and you're in strife. Think about it. It's even more so.
Well, when I saw Hans Zimmer at Kudos Bank Arena, people were filming. They did nothing. They didn't care.
I know. I mean, some places do, but some performers do. Some don't. Again, it depends on how precious they are, how important their copyright is to them.
Yeah.
What they want to do with that performance. See, don't forget also something like that. Don't forget that. Something like that was done many times. That performance was done many times. A major orchestral concert program might be performed 7 times altogether across the 10 times together. The ACO might do its one concert 8 or 9 times across the whole country, and that's it. If they want to get more value from that concert, they need to preserve their own copy.
Yeah.
It's like, as I said, most venues ask you not to film. You go to a museum and they used to ask you not to photograph the works of art. Nowadays, they don't mind as much because it's a fighting battle.
Is it true?
They ask you not to use flash.
Yeah, I was going to say Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting, they don't want you to take photos of it.
Oh, the Moaning Lisa.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of reasons for that. Partly because it's a very valuable image.
Yeah.
But then again, there's so many of those in the wild, you don't have to take a photo of a copy. If I want a copy of the Mona Lisa, I can get that in 10 seconds.
The internet.
Exactly, I can get a copy in 10 seconds. A good, accurate, clean copy. But because it is such a famous painting in Paris, the Louvre, you've got this process of being allowed to watch it. It's a real, it's quite disappointing because you're kind of almost shuffling in, standing, looking at this, shuffling away. And people doing this are going to put that camera in front of somebody else's view of it. And it's going to slow them down. And it's to encourage people to actually do what you're supposed to do with the work of art, look at it. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, for most people, you go, I've seen the Mona Lisa. It's it. I mean, I've taken a photo of it. I've taken a photo. Is that the only way that I can know I've seen this? This whole fixation in the world that you haven't seen something unless you photographed it.
Now, the Mona Lisa, have they had to touch it up because paint where it deteriorates over time?
I don't think there's been much restoration done on it. It's been very, very well protected.
Wow. See, I was speaking about that because when I was in Northern Territory, there was some Aboriginal artwork that you can't take photos of.
Well, there are various reasons. In this case, it's probably cultural. Because these works are site-specific. They are painted on walls.
Yeah, rocks.
And they have a religious symbolism.
Yeah.
So it's I've always kind of felt uncomfortable about photographing religious works of art in churches.
Wow.
For the same reason. You know what I'm saying? It's that same feeling. It has to do with the image. And the other thing is that this image is site-specific. It should not be seen in any other place.
It's amazing, because these Aboriginal artworks are thousands of years old and they're still there.
Well, there is something interesting about it. A lot of these 1,000-year-old ones have been constantly maintained.
Ah.
Some of them have actually been maintained. Which is an interesting observation. People aren't aware of this. In fact, there's been a long history of maintaining them. But some of them are actually, because they've been in the right kind of place, you put them into a dry cave and nobody comes in there for 1,000 years without any light. There's not much to damage the pigment. The colours will still hang around.
Well, they put them on rocks in the shade.
Yeah, but put them on the rocks, the same thing. And don't forget the climate. I've been in tombs in Egypt, where those 2,000-year-old paintings are immaculate. Like they were drawn yesterday. Same thing, kept well away. Sadly, with all the people being allowed in to visit them, they'll probably be gone in 100 years. So they'll wake up the fact that it's this is true. It's sad but true. When you think about it, if you get enough people coming in and out and breathing moisture, bugs, mould coming in with them, those paintings are going to die. They're going to die within 100 years.
Now, the thing with Egypt, I wanted to say about the pyramids. How were they built, Patrick?
Slowly.
Or did aliens build them?
No. Really slowly.
Yeah.
They had a lot of manpower and a lot of time. Don't forget, if you had to, you can move a fridge. Have you ever walked a fridge?
Yeah, it's a pain.
But you can do it.
Yeah.
You can move a multi-ton rock. If you can have people rocking and rolling it, levers, rollers, giant ramps, and time. And a lot of people doing it. Most of whom, despite all the films and the things, were volunteers. Well, semi-volunteers. They were doing tax work.
Well, they were slaves too.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
A lot of them were people doing tax work. Basically, you paid your tax by helping build a pyramid.
Ah. Interesting.
And I see drinking water is catching.
Keeping hydrated. No, because the Book of Exodus, right, talks about Egypt. And you know how you hear the story about Moses and then all that waves, they went just, I don't know what happened.
The Red Sea, etc.
Is that real or is there some mythology to it?
The story of Moses and the Red Sea, or one version, the Sea of Reeds, which is the marshy bogland right up the head of the Red Sea. It depends where you come from in reading the Bible.
Yeah.
So I am of what is probably now the majority view, that it is legendary, that it's legend, that in fact, possibly he was able to cross the shallow end due to a bit of a freak wind and things, because they did talk about a wind. fairly stable ground.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the army came in, the wind dropped and made the ground unstable. But that would not have caused them to be gone under 6 feet of water or anything, but made life impossible for them to move. Hard to tell. But I'm of the belief that, but that is, as I said, that's where I come from in my understanding, and that is a fairly conventional viewpoint. That the actual Cecil B. DeMille's Ten Commandments version is not an accurate depiction of what is described.
Well, funny about the Bible, there's so many versions. Old King James, the Catholics got the extra Maccabees in it.
Yeah, there are things about that, but I know a bit about that too. But again, you've got two things. You've got what is acceptable as being the canon of the Bible. There is that difference, and there is the translation of the Bible.
Yeah, yep.
Bearing in mind that the Bible itself was written quite a few years ago. Substantial amounts of it here. And interestingly, most of the New Testament was written in what was a foreign language for people who were writing it, their second language. Because the New Testament was written in Greek, talking about a bloke who spoke Aramaic.
The New Testament's interesting because there's the book of Mary Magdalene, I think the Gospel of Judas, that didn't get in there.
Again, these are all... I've got some of these here at home because I picked up on these collections. A lot of people wrote a lot of books at various times claiming to tell the story of what went on. We don't really know. However, way back early in the piece, the powers that be decided that the four most consistent, and they do differ from each other quite substantially, but the four most coherent, and the ones that tell a story rather than just a lot of hodgepodge of bits and pieces of sayings, were the four Gospels that we had, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. All the other ones tend to be mishmashes, often bits and pieces from the known Gospels, written with sayings, collections of sayings and stories and things that don't seem to hold together well when you have to look at them together.
Yeah, like, did you know there was Stephen who got stoned in the Bible?
Yes.
In the book of Acts?
Yep. On the 26th of December. The Feast of Stephen.
No, but the Bible... Yeah, as I said, now you got the New International Version, you got the New King James.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, because it's written in a different language, the real problem is making it understandable to us. I'm afraid that even if I could understand Aramaic, Hebrew, and late classical Greek, or not late classical, actually early late Roman, late Greek, I wouldn't be able to read that. I don't understand it. So it has to be turned into a readable form.
But see, before the Bible...
When King James, back in the early 17th century, said, "Oi, you, write me a Bible." Give me a Bible.
Yeah.
They grabbed an earlier translation as well, and they wrote a Bible. They put a Bible together using A, the language of their time, which was Shakespearean English, and B, using their understanding of the meanings and the words in the Greek and the Aramaic and the Hebrew. The problem is they didn't necessarily get it right. In fact, it's known that they didn't get it right all the time. So they wrote a magnificent work of English language that doesn't necessarily quite accurately reflect what was being said in the original. And since then, people have spent a lot of time trying to get the right feel. But the problem with the translation paraphrasing is you've got to not only get the words right, but you've got to get the actual meaning behind the words right. You've got to actually tell us not what the words say, but what the writer would say, without paraphrasing.
It's interesting. I was going to bring up the Tao Te Ching before that was around before the Bible with Lao Tzu.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of other works. Yeah. I mean, people have been writing substantial works on religious and philosophical writings forever. Don't forget, however, I'm not sure, but don't forget the Bible. Parts of the Bible go back to at least 500 BCE. In fact, around 500 BCE was when the Bible, as we know it, or most of it, was essentially written. But parts of that Bible, parts of what they put together around then, goes back another 1,000 years. Parts of the Bible are at least 3,000 years old.
Does archaeology has dug up stuff from the biblical times too?
Oh, I mean, and again, there's a lot of stuff that fits around the edges, yeah. So there have been various things. I mean, around that same 500, that's what I'm about to say. We also had Buddha in India. That's probably had around a similar kind of time frame. We had 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 simultaneous explosions of attempts at understanding the world. That's what they all are.
But see, this is what I don't understand. 3 days after Jesus dies, he's resurrected from the dead. Now, is this true or philosophy? That's hard to say.
It is hard to say, and the thing is that this is where you move from a simple physical understanding of the world to a spiritual understanding of the world. This is tricky because there are. I'm thinking about it again, depending on where you sit on the Christian scale. There are some absolute Christians, and there are bishops, named Spong, for instance, who would argue that the resurrection was effectively metaphorical. That in fact it was a growing in the perception in the mind of the people, the story. There are some who would argue that somehow the resurrection was real, but it was only spiritual, a kind of a quasi-ghost-like. But again, and there's some who argue that there was, in fact, a body walking around. But the nature of that body is interesting.
Because why 33?
Because the resurrected body,
yeah,
in any kind of conventional authority, is somehow different to the original body. But at the same time, the story is that the resurrected Jesus went around and he ate and he drank. So it's hard to tell.
Now
But the core, this is actually one of the core beliefs. That's the only word for it of your true Christian, of your core Christianity. So it is hard to understand. It's one of the big word is in its true meaning mystery.
No one can explain it, but like he died at 33 years old.
Plus or minus.
Now,
Again, plus or minus.
I mean, he never married, never had a family as well, but yeah. How, have scientists been able to uncover how this whole Jesus was born and how he could do these miracles of water into wine?
No, this is the point. There are a couple of problems with that. One, we are looking at something that happened 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
2, we have no physical evidence of anything that's went on at that time. So there's nothing physical to test. So it's beyond the realm of science to validate or invalidate any of the Jesus stories. It's beyond the realm of science. It's not a science question.
Yeah, and then you hear the story of Jesus being tempted by the devil as well.
Well, again, this is part part of that whole, as I said, the whole thing is that, again, what do we mean by tempted by the devil?
To worship the devil.
I know, but the whole thing is what's actually being described there.
That I will give you all this.
No. But the thing is that, again, it is possible to, as with much of the Bible, to take this more or less literally. This is the point.
True.
And here this gets quite contentious. I'm not, as I said, this is something that I'm real not put myself too far out into the limb here.
It's all good, Patrick. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
But and I think in Scotland you got those stones that are like they're standing up, and then one's on top or something like that.
Well, if you're thinking of Stonehenge, that's a long way from Scotland. That's a long way from Scotland.
Where's Stonehenge?
In South England.
And was that done by natural disaster art or architecture?
It's done by people.
Gee, wow.
I mean, don't forget time and effort. You can do a hell of a lot just through sheer hard bloody work. And these stones are large, but they're not huge. You know, you build some kind of scaffolding, you get lots and lots of muscly people. Maybe you don't understand the pulley system. I mean, Archimedes and his development of pulleys and things made life a lot easier for people. But you never let people kind of, you sling a rope over, you put enough people on the end of a rope. You've got to hoist something bloody heavy. Now, you have a frame, you sling a rope over it.
So
you put 50 people on the rope and you can lift a couple of tons, easy.
There is historical evidence, of giants existed as well.
Not really.
Or is that myth? Because there was the genus Mammuthus, that was a huge, huge elephant, and
the mammoth elephant. That's recent.
Wow.
I mean, the mammoths come through right through. They're mammalian. The mammoths were around, almost within human memory. Mammoths coexist with people.
But you always get the controversy about the dinosaurs and the Adam and Eve and what happened to dinosaurs.
Well, this is exactly what I've been skating around all along. No, I'm serious. This is what I mean. The thing is, if you wish to take the Bible as being literally true, then we'd had to have dinosaurs. Then, because we know there have been dinosaurs, then dinosaurs had to have coexisted with people. Full stop.
Exactly.
However, the best evidence is that the dinosaurs died out 20 million years before there's any person on the planet. And only 20 million years. Not very long.
Yeah.
Now, this is the problem. This is a serious issue that if you have to accept that there are certain mythic, and I use that word in its technical sense, components in the Genesis in the Genesis stories, the first few chapters of Genesis. That is, there are stories whose truth lies in the message rather than the actual story itself. That's what a myth is. Broadly. It involves supernatural, but it has a supernatural truth that is conveyed by the story rather than the... Because the first two chapters of Genesis contradict each other. Absolutely. So there are all sorts of wonderful workarounds to get around a couple of problems, like...
Cain and Abel was one. Apparently Cain was the evil one.
Story. This is one explanation for the division of the human race. It goes through to the Tower of Babel, which is the explanation of all the languages. So each of these stories is an attempt to explain the world as it is. You see, so the interesting one is the Ark.
Noah's Ark, yeah.
Noah's Ark, because interestingly, there doesn't seem to be a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
See, the other myths and the other stories in early Genesis, there's a reason for them. You can understand they're explaining something. The Noah's Ark story, and the interesting thing is the Noah's Ark story existed outside the Bible. It exists in the Babylonian history as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which suggests that somewhere along the line there was a catastrophic flooding event in that civilized area. And I mean catastrophic, on the scale of the New Orleans flooding probably, or greater.
Mm.
In fact, I know one smart aleck said what happened was that the Gibraltar Gap opened up and the Mediterranean flooded.
Mm.
Which to me is pushing the boat a bit. But nevertheless, there's this common, because major floods have always been an issue, but the thing was this one is particular. It's a strange one to explain because as I said, the other ones, if you think about them, they were explaining something we see that need to explain.
Mm. Well, you mentioned the New Orleans flood. What was the cause of that? Because that was a bad flood. Hurricane. We get them in North Queensland every year.
Yeah, I know, but this a combination of a particularly deep low, which is the hurricane, very low pressure system, that's moved in right over New Orleans, king tides.
Mm-hmm.
And poorly maintained drainage pump systems.
Mm-hmm.
And water got over the walls.
Wow.
Because see, don't forget, a lot of New Orleans is under sea level.
Mm-hmm.
Or just on sea level. So it has this whole pattern of walls of dikes around it, which have these constant pumps going, pumpity, 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 pump. And there's a river flowing through it as well. No, you think about it, it's quite crazy. It shouldn't work. And what happened was, particularly the old New Orleans, it's low and stuff, and what happened was you had this hurricane, which is, we don't get hurricanes called hurricanes in Australia, that's another story. We call them cyclones, and in other parts of Australia they call them typhoon, but the same thing, only different. So the hurricane came thundering in. It was intensely low. It really was a grand area. And being a very low pressure, it creates strong inward wind patterns. So you had massive winds blowing the water, and it lifts the water up. So you had natural high tide, really very, very significantly low wind pressure, air pressure over the water goes higher. And if you think about it, that hill of water is moving quite fast because it moves as fast as the Earth spins.
Mm.
And at New Orleans, that's still around 600 miles an hour.
Mm.
What happens when a heap of water, even this high, going at 600 miles an hour, hits the shallower stuff? It piles up higher and higher and higher.
Mm.
That's why they used to call them tidal waves. That's exactly why they call them tidal waves. It's the same principle as the tides.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of getting a tide that was 3 metres high, you've got a tide that was 5 metres high.
Mm.
And the walls were only 4 metres high. They're just made up numbers. That's the principle. And the water just went straight over the top.
It was like, I think, you remember the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami?
Yeah. That was triggered mechanically.
Mechanically? Interesting.
Shifted the Earth's floor.
Mm. Now,
it's mechanical.
San Francisco is that's a city, state in the US where that if there's going to be an earthquake tsunami, it'll hit San Francisco.
That's always tsunami, not the earthquake. The tsunami will hit other places because the tsunami won't hit there because it's going to be where the earthquake happens.
Mm.
Although there could be earthquakes offshore.
Mm-hmm.
To get a tsunami, you need moderately shallow water
Mm-hmm.
and an earthquake zone under, and an earthquake in moderately shallow water.
Mm.
that particularly shifts up and down like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get the sea level dropping by a metre
Mm-hmm.
along a 100 kilometre front, that's a hell of a lot of water goes whoop into that hole. And then it bounces back and goes whoop the other way. And
Yeah.
you get a little hill of water moving very fast.
Can a big ship sail over a tidal wave or not?
At sea, yes. Because at sea, the tidal wave is only 2 or 3 centimetres high.
Wow.
So don't forget that the moon, you know how high tides can be?
Mm.
The moon only lifts the water in a matter of centimetres.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is over here, it lifts that water a centimetre over a huge distance. And as that little heap of water moving at the speed of the Earth's rotating, which I said is pretty damn fast, at the equator it's 900 miles an hour.
Mm.
Down here it's around 600-700 miles an hour. That's fast. Where that small hill of water, moving fast, starts hitting shallow ground, the front slows down and the back piles up.
Mm.
And it comes the high tide.
Yeah.
It multiplies. Because it has nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
That hill of water has nowhere to go except upwards. That's why you don't get big tides on those Pacific islands in the middle of the Pacific.
Mm.
Because they're atolls, and the water's deep all the way around them. So that little hit the water just goes around them.
See, the Krakatoa tsunami was caused by a volcano.
Yeah, volcanoes, but again, that also involved movement of the earth floor, of the floor of the ocean. Or dumping a lot of rubbish into the ocean. That's the other way. You can have a massive, you get a big enough dump into the ocean. All you've got to do is start a big heap of water moving.
Now, can Australia be hit by a tsunami?
Yeah, we've been hit by tsunamis.
Have we?
Yeah. There's one that's in Sydney quite a few years ago now. Mm-hmm. There's evidence of tsunamis in Australia. The only thing is you need to have a source that is close enough.
Because we're not on the equator.
No, don't do the equator. I just use the equator for the speed of the equator. That can happen anywhere, north or south.
Yeah.
I mean, Japan is a long way further north of the equator than we are south.
And they had a tsunami?
They're massive tsunamis. The one that took out the nuclear power station.
Mm.
That was that same tsunami. That tsunami was well in the North Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about saying that I just quote 900 miles an hour at the equator.
Mm-hmm.
450 miles an hour at 60 degrees south.
Mm.
We're nowhere near 60 south.
See, New Zealand's always known to have earthquakes as well.
Yeah, well, it's on that same rim. See, around the whole edge of the Pacific.
Yeah.
From New Zealand up, you see all these little strings of islands. Up to New Zealand, up through Micronesia, through the Philippines, through Japan.
Mm-hmm.
You think about that whole string of little islands, of islands. These are all at the edge of continental shelves running into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get that happening, you get earthquake activity.
Mm.
They're weak spots. And the islands tend to be pushed up by them. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I've been hearing about global warming and Antarctica's apparently heating up. They had the hottest day of 18 degrees. That's nothing for us in Australia. Al Gore was always going on about climate change.
A bit before his time and a little bit over-egging the pudding at that time again.
Is climate change real?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The science, the basic science, is almost 200 years old.
Mm.
The idea of the science behind climate warming was first discussed over 200 years ago. About 130 years ago, the mechanism was fully explained and fully understood.
Mm-hmm.
All we have to do is take the measurements.
How did you feel about Al Gore just always speaking about climate change?
Well, I actually, at the time, even though I agreed with him totally, I don't think I've ever actually seen the film.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt he was marketing it too heavily for my style.
He did a whole TED talk on climate change.
Oh yeah, everything on climate change. He made the film and all these kind of things.
South Park said he had the man bear pig.
Well, as I said, basically, I'm not really great. As I said, with Al Gore, I really didn't pay a huge amount of attention to him at the time, because I said he was basically, I thought he was, to some ways for me, he was kind of overselling it. His marketing was almost hysterical. And I've always been a much more give me the facts person.
Well, that's what you want. You want the facts.
Well, some people prefer to be pushed the other way. This is the thing. He gave the facts, but he gave it away that I thought was a little bit too... it left him a little bit too open to being knocked out.
Was he trying to create a business out of it? He's trying to create a business out of climate change.
Well, I mean, that is one of the stories. Don't forget, the big argument against doing anything about this, well, it's all just a business being created, people that are making a living out of talking about climate, etc., etc. So that is actually one of the arguments that's being used against any discussion.
Yeah, actually the ABC, you know how we were speaking about cars before, farmers have to have something on the back of their quad bike now? Because all these quad bike accidents. Yeah.
Quad bikes were among the most dangerous things ever invented.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's a little four-wheel go-kart type machine.
Mm-hmm.
Drive along.
Mm-hmm.
Four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive in good over rugged country, solid, company and some good speed. However, you start doing something like that and you drive over rough country. And you hit something that's just a little bit too high for the speed you're going at. And what happens? You roll it.
Yeah.
You roll sitting on an open frame, and it ends up upside down on top of you. What happens to you?
You get crushed. Because not all farmers wear helmets on the quad bikes too.
Well, the helmet wouldn't have helped.
Yeah. They should.
So basically it was about the fact that a significant number of people were being killed by quad bike rolling.
Is the government enforcing this, or is this just the law they bring out?
They'll enforce it. But it won't be a huge... There won't be this massive blitz or anything, but there will be definitely some action.
Yeah, the ABC, it was a couple of weeks ago on the ABC about quad bikes.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's something that has just kind of come and gone. In fact, it's quite a few years now since the roll bars became mandatory, or some considerable time since that regulation was first brought in, but because there was a massive a massive lead-in time given. They didn't say, have to do it tomorrow. So quite possibly the story was that it's now mandatory full stop. And we're close to that by now, I'd say.
But, Melbourne, God, how many lockdowns have Melbourne been in, Patrick?
What was it? 720 days or something?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
No, it was just their bad bloody luck. But combined with their good practice. That might sound funny. Bad luck because the shape of Melbourne meant that the old COVID had a better chance, and the way Melbourne works meant that COVID distributed better in Melbourne than it did across Sydney. So So that's with the bad luck. So they did have to close down, and the good management meant that despite the fact that it was such a nasty bug, it really was, it only went haywire. It didn't go radically haywire.
Mm.
I mean, again, you compare the rate of infection and the rate of mortality in Melbourne to, say, almost anywhere in the United States with a similar sized population, and you'll find that they did better by a factor of 4 or 5 at least. But because they did take that strong action.
Well, these protesting too caused it.
Oh, they are people who we have to listen to them because many of them had some kind of reason.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is simply anti-authority,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of it is to do with ignorance, willful or otherwise, or misinformation or disinformation.
Just like the Spanish flu.
That's totally different. Because, I mean, there were people who protested against being controlled for the Spanish flu.
Mm.
There were protests against the Spanish flu rules.
Mm.
But equally, we have this developing local culture of we have rights.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at rights as being the major concern of people.
Mm.
Which I don't think is. Which again is one of these strange things the way people work.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't actually. As I said, so the Melbourne shutdowns were, as I said, just one of those. It was an artefact of their, as much of their geography and their demography, the way that city worked, as against because Sydney had much more compact communities.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney had better defined boundaries. At least that's what I believe. That is what I believe. I've heard. And also, I think possibly, despite the fact that Melbourne had heavier nominal closed downs, the Sydney people, quite possibly in Sydney, they reacted differently to the way the closed downs worked, and perhaps, I don't know, they reacted better and therefore behaved better and therefore didn't spread it as much.
Mm. People still protested too.
Yes, well, people can protest. It's just that it's a bit unhappy that they felt the need to.
Mm.
Because, as I said, it is hard to actually understand the fundamental of their reasoning because we are coming from a different base.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also hard to necessarily know what they have been taught or what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get to understand. It's hard to know where they're actually coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, some of the rules were pretty out of the blue. Chop, do this.
Mm.
And unless you are comfortable with the fact that the explanation, often which were quite technical, unless you accepted the explanation, if you don't accept or understand the explanation, then you feel like you're being hard done by.
Mm.
Now, if you're hard done by, what do?
Protest.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you really can't say there was, in fact. However, there is also an element in that those protests of what just played out right, ragbaggering. People who were just stirring. Some of the protests were culpable and some weren't.
Mm. Yeah, the tradies in Melbourne, because construction's shut, they protested.
Yeah, well, they protested the fact that the only industry that had been allowed to continue was eventually shut down because they were ignoring the rules.
Oh.
There was significant ignoring of the rules going on. And again, there was an interesting subtlety in that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
There was, in fact, a point that some of them made that was actually quite valid.
Exactly.
Again, that's why that when you actually dug a bit deeper, wasn't quite as black and white, but nevertheless, they were not as hard done by as they were saying.
Mm.
They did have, again, some legitimate ground, but they're absolute. Basically, the fact that they've been allowed to continue when virtually every other industry had been shut down at meantime meant that maybe, hey, they should have been aware that they were exceptional. They were already being granted a lot, and therefore to demand more was a little bit out of order.
Yeah, that's what's happened, and it's going to take a while for the economy to get moving again.
They've had that huge bounce of last year after the first wave, and it's ticking along slightly better than they imagined it would. But what is the economy?
Money.
That question is slightly more than money. I mean, as long as people are being fed, housed and clothed, and their health and education being looked after, then the economy is probably ticking along all right.
You get the news media said that we were in a recession last year.
Well, possibly we were.
What's a recession?
Well, if you think about it, what it means is that the economy normally keeps on every year. The economy produces normally over the whole, whatever we measure the economy with, there's an increase year on year, which is often a fraction more than even the population increase. It was to do with the fact that people work a bit harder, they're more efficient, and all these kind of things. So normally we get a gradual increase in what's called the gross domestic product, which is a measure of the economic turnover. A couple of times last year, instead of there being an increase, there was a small decrease in the economic turnover. In other words, the economy slowed down. People stopped doing as much. So if people stop spending the money around for long enough, it becomes a recession. And the problem with that, the problem is, and that's what it's funny thing, if people stop spending money, people stop paying money. And it becomes a close and becomes a feedback. And then what happens is we stop employing people, and then this, and then that, and then that. And if it's bad enough, we end up with a depression instead.
We could have.
We could have ended up with a depression in the global financial crisis.
We
could have avoided that by doing something that they worked out, and it worked with the first Great Depression. We spent money. The government spent money. The government just basically made money, made jobs, just pumped money, just kept money out there, just put money out there, kept money moving. And so people just kept on doing things, so that whole defeatism never set in. Because depressions are about defeatism, ultimately. It's almost as much psychological as economic.
Was psychological because you had media bombarding people every day, and still now.
Yeah. I mean, I was saying things about it, and we got through.
But what's next? Do we just live with COVID-19? And
my feeling is, like I said this soon, we'll be living with COVID-19 in much the same way we did with something like smallpox.
But smallpox was eradicated how many years?
Eventually, yes. But that was because it was a bacterium, a particular type of bug that had a very, very narrow vector pool. The trouble with this bug is that it lives outside the human population.
Breathe it in the air. Mm.
The smallpox lived in people.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't live anywhere else. So if you get enough people with smallpox, they have nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened.
How many vaccines did you have to have for smallpox that you can remember? Was it 2?
I think I had 3. Well, they had to have it every few years.
Oh, interesting.
I think I had 4 or 5. I had to check my yellow card, which is... It should be in that file. It should be in that file.
The good old days. History.
Here we are. Smallpox. Twice in 1975, which had over the first and second.
Yeah.
Then once in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And once, that's yellow fever in 1982.
Wow.
I got rabies, cholera, meningitis, which is meningitis. So I had twice in 75 and then once in 78.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more against cholera and typhoid because they're only short-acting vaccines.
Yeah. It's good that you keep records of all these. Do you still have to show your yellow... You don't have to show your yellow card if you travel now?
Not at the moment. Well, I have. but what's going to happen is you're going to have to do something about almost certainly... Right now, for instance, to get to Australia, you're going to have a certificate for vaccination against COVID.
You know, to leave the country in Australia, you got to pay for your COVID test?
Yeah, well, that was the rule here because you're leaving Australia as voluntary.
Yeah.
If you're leaving voluntary, then you pay the cost.
It's $300.
Yeah, well, they're getting cheaper. You can buy a rapid testing at Woolies now for $50 for 10.
Do you think it's accurate?
Accurate enough. Basically, after the third or fourth test you've done, it's accurate.
Yeah.
Because it works on changes. So you can get a... So I said, but if you want to fly into America, you've got to be vaccinated now.
Exactly.
So those tennis players who are complaining about getting to Australia, you have the same trouble getting to America. What
will be the trouble for the tennis players trying to get to Australia?
Well, there are one or two saying, it's not your business. I'm not going to tell you that I'm vaccinated. Not your business.
Because a couple of them picked it up too, COVID, last year.
Well, that includes one of those.
Yeah. Novak Djokovic, wasn't it?
Yeah, Novak Djokovic is saying my vaccination status is a private matter.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand the concept of public health. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. My feeling is that if he is allowed to come in and quarantine unvaccinated, he should be quarantined at a Commonwealth facility. That means Howard Springs and Alice Springs.
Yeah.
It should be because it's Commonwealth. It'll be the Commonwealth who let him in. They should do all the quarantine. It's not this hotel or private residence. It should be absolute, strict Commonwealth quarantine. It's essentially a punishment for being naughty. Essentially saying, hey, we're letting you in, but you've got to pay the price, the moral price.
Quarantine.
Yeah. And do it properly. And it's quite a pleasant place up on Howard Springs, they say. It's nicer than a hotel.
Yeah.
Except, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Peace and quiet.
Yeah.
But, this was a fantastic show with you, Patrick.
Okay, as always. Otherwise, an interesting range of topics.
So what's happening before we finish at Vinnie's? What do you got on at Vinnie's this week? Have you got a Christmas party coming up?
None at the moment. Nothing's planned at the moment. There'll probably be some kind of celebration at the end of the year. Simply we've survived it.
Did you have a celebration last year?
No. Oh, yes, they did. But I had to miss it.
Oh.
Because I was already booked out for that day.
Yeah. But are you going away over Christmas this year, or you...
I hope so. I have no reason to believe that I won't be.
Mm-hmm.
We've still got 2 months. And Canberra is just opening. I'm not going to go to Canberra. Canberra is just beginning to open up this week. So I think that there should be no worries.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, thanks for coming on today, Patrick.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.